Okay, we're continuing on Hilchos Niddah, Siman Kuf Tzadik. That's the Siman that deals with Din Somim Ubdikat Haisha. The halachas concerning staining, the halachas concerning how a woman is supposed to check herself. Last time we discussed the principle behind Ksomim, and that is that in reality we learned from the Drasha and the Gemara that a woman only becomes Tameah for Niddah purposes when she has a Hargosha, when she feels something, and then she checks herself and there's blood. If there's no Hargosha and somehow she discovers blood, it's only a Derabanan. If she checked herself internally, even though she didn't feel anything, she's still Tmei D'Oraisa, because we say she's Becheskas, that the blood that she checked came Behargosha, but she didn't notice it. She wasn't paying attention. So, as a result of that, stains, assuming that it's a stain that we're going to render Tomeh, is a Tumah D'Rabanan. And it's important for us to know if something is D'Rabanan or if it's D'Oraisa, because if there's a suffix, then it's a suffix D'Rabanan, and not a suffix D'Oraisa. As far as Hargosha is concerned, discussed it several times that there's different opinions as to what a woman feels, or what she can feel. Either there's a feeling of that the Makor, the uterus opened up, something opens up within her body, release the blood, or Niddah Evoreo, or that she feels some sort of sensation similar to trembling, that the body shudders. Or the third one is that there is an actual sensation of a fluid flowing through the vagina. And I double-checked, my sources, it appears that the majority of women, at least today, have more of the third kind of sensation than the first one or the second one. If at all, if they feel anything at all, it's usually the third. Okay, that's good to know. So the drasha in the Gemara was that concerning a woman, concerning the tumah of a niddah that would prohibit her from being with her husband, is that there was a hargasha, as opposed to the tumah that would prohibit her from handling tahara. During the time that there was a Basar and there was halachas of tumah and tahara, there were quite a few chumras regarding a woman who discovers that she's unclean or that she sees blood, whether we say that the tumah begins now, or perhaps we have to take it back in time. Maybe she was already tmeya yesterday, she just noticed it now. So, in the past, halachas of tumah and tahara were very important, and those halachas, in other words, the halachas that we're learning now, related to that too. Not only did it relate to that, it, for the most part, related to tumah and tahara, as far as ksamim are concerned. It's only by extension, in a sense, that because we were metama a woman for a stain, for tumah and tahara purposes, by extension to that, we also are metama her to her husband, for similar reasons, even though it still remains at the Rabbanan, in halachas of niddah, whereas in hilchas tumah v'tahara, it's more of a suffix d'oraisa. As we explained last week, ksomim for tumah and tahara purposes are much more of a d'oraisa, and any suffix that arises in the area of ksomim for tumah and tahara is a suffix d'oraisa. But sfeikas that arise in ksomim, in stains, for purposes of is she a niddah to her husband or not, is a derabanan. The reason why ksomim is still an issue today, even though tumah and tahara are no longer around, so Chasam Sofer explains very simply, because we have a klal, something that was decided upon, Dova Shebeminyan, group of rabbis got together and they made this halacha. We cannot just undo it and say, well, it doesn't really apply anymore. You need another minyan of rabbis, a group of rabbis, of course, who are of equal authority, of course, to undo that gzera. So even though that gzera by niddah is by extension from tumah and tahara, and tumah and tahara is no longer applicable today, still we leave the gzera of ksomim by niddah in its place. However, there's also some leniencies along with it, and as we will soon see, it has to do with the measurement, the size of the ketem. Because the whole idea behind the stain was at certain times when we're lenient, the only reason we are lenient is because it's a derabanan. Okay? So there's various ways that one can be lenient, as we will see, depending on the color of the stain, depending on the location of where you found the stain, depending on the size of the stain, depending on the material or where the stain was found, if she was wearing colored clothing or not, even though the stain was red, and so forth. There's quite a few leniencies that relate to stains, which makes this a quite fascinating siman, the whole area of ksomim. But it is something to be taken seriously. It does happen. It can complicate matters for women if they stain regularly, because a woman has to be clean. And especially it's very delicate during the Shiva Nekiyim, when a woman has to be completely clean for 7 days after her period has stopped. There are certain halachas there too, during the beginning stages of the 7 clean days, or later on. So these are halachas, of course, that we're going to discuss. They're relevant halachas, and if there's ever a shaila, a woman sees a stain, it's something that she needs to ask. It's something that she has to bring with her. So the rabbi who's going to analyze it, who's going to look at it, evaluate it, will be able to make a proper determination, and the sooner the better, before it dries up, before it fades. So just to review a little bit of what we've done so far, is that ksomim, even though it's a suffix, it's not necessarily a sfek sveika, even though some wanted to suggest, but perhaps we have a sfek sveika. We don't really have a sfek sveika, is because the chachamim were machmir here, and said that most likely this has come from her guf. In other words, the sfek sveika was suffix, it was migufa, suffix it was not from her guf. And if you want to say migufa, who's to say that it came from the place where it's tummy or not? So we explained that this is nekes of Mishnah, that even though the chachamim were machmir, since the chachamim were machmir, that it's an isur chomer, it's considered just one suffix. Simpler explanation is that since there's really nothing else to be toile on, as we're going to be learning today, when are we toile? When do we assume or we suppose that it could have easily come from somewhere else? When there's reason to believe that there were some bugs that she went through a butcher. In other words, if there's reason to be toile, then of course you have the leniency. But if there's no other reason to be toile, then it's more likely than not that it came from her guf. So it's really only one suffix. So what about, why don't we just say suffix derabanan lekula? Even though it's only one suffix, it should be a suffix derabanan lekula. So that we mentioned in Rabbi Yehuda, that because it starts off by the hilchas of Tumah and Tahara, that she's Tmeya, even below Hargasha. By Tumah and Tahara you don't need Hargasha, because the Makor is Tomeh, so it's a Safek D'Oraisa. So since it's a Safek D'Oraisa over there, it remains a stricter suffix for Hilchas Niddah purposes as well. Then we said the Taz says that the majority of the time the dam comes out from an isha who does not have a makkah from the makor and not from somewhere else. So it's really only one subject. He says it's pretty much almost all the time, therefore we can't say it's a fake sveika. Okay, I'm not going to repeat the Truma Sedeshin, but that was the end of Seif Aleph. Pretty much that if the Machaber brings down the halacha that if she felt the makor opening up and she checked herself and found nothing, that some say she's tmeya, because she felt something opening. It could have been that somehow it was a little drop and she just missed it. And there are a lot of poskim are machmir, that if she actually felt the feeling of something going through and she checked herself and she didn't see anything, especially if she checked herself a little later, then it's very possible that it's no longer there, and it was there, and it was small, she didn't notice it. But if she did check and she found something clean, and there was a clear coloration of a liquid of some sort of liquid that is not tummy, then it would not be a problem. We did say, and it's important to repeat, that any time a woman sticks something in her body and she sees something on it, about blood, a red color, that's not called a kesem in a sense. Even though she's not having the hargosha, she's actually sticking it inside. She sees for herself where it is from. That's completely different than all of a sudden waking up and seeing a stain on the linen or on her gown, which possibly could also have come from there, but it could also have come from somewhere else. So sticking something internally is already a completely different story. In other words, even if it's small, it will still be a problem. And that's of course something that women do when they check themselves at the end of the period, if they can start the Shivas Nekiyim. So if they're still unclean, they can't start Shiva Nekiyim. But what happens, and I should add that sometimes they check themselves and they think they're dirty, and it's really dirt and not blood. And that dirt is not necessarily metame. In other words, it could be something left over from before. She never cleansed herself very well. You need somebody who really knows or who's experienced about these things to tell the woman, you just didn't wash yourself well. It's not that you still have dam there. That's not really dam. So she could sometimes lose a day just because she thinks that she's still bleeding. And that is why it's important to ask. Whenever in doubt, you ask. You don't want to lose a day. Sometimes a day can make a difference whether if a woman becomes pregnant or not. She waited one extra day. It means her mikveh was one day later. That can mess up the whole thing. So it's very easy to be machmir. Rabbi can tell her, just wait another day. It's not so simple. If a rabbi does that and he did not check it out, he could be preventing a child from being born by pushing off her mikveh date. Just to say, let's be on the safe side. You can't just be on the safe side is very, very nice. But here we're talking about losing a chance of becoming pregnant perhaps. So it's important to become familiar with the halachas as to what really constitutes a kesem that is tmeya, that makes her tmeya, what not, and whether she's clean or not. By the time she's ready to do a hefsek tahara, 5 days is the average. You're going to make her wait a 6th day because she's still bleeding? Who says that's blood? Just because you see it's dirty? Yeah.
It takes a certain level of whether it's really a kesem.
Sure.
And I assume that you don't have that level of expertise.
No. Hilchas Niddah, if people who get married, chas and kala, need to go through the basic halachas.
No, but if there's some on the kesem.
All right, so I'm saying chas and kala have to go through the basic halachas and become familiar with the basics. The woman is usually more familiar than the man because she's more involved with it and she has to be more aware of certain things. Nonetheless, there's from time to time questions, and then when the question arises, she just cannot address any rabbi. It has to be somebody that specializes in this area that can answer that question. There's some very complex question in his niddah, and not everyone is really that familiar with all the details of Hilchas Niddah. People know perhaps the general halacha of what a man and woman can or cannot do while the wife is in need. This because the husband learned it, the rabbi learned it himself when he was a chassan, right? So he can, maybe deal with that and some of the basics. But stains is a whole, like you said, it's a specialty. So you need experience for it. Even if you know the halachas, you really should have shimush. Shimush means that you have experience with others who are very knowledgeable about it. Yeah.
So you're going to end up with exactly the problem that you presented before.
Sure. They have to be careful.
There's a lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
Even whoever they.
No. So it all depends what it is. We have in the halachas we're going to see certain guidelines as to when you need to be machmir and when not, unnecessarily. But it takes someone who has learned his halachas and has experience to be able to make that decision. Not everyone can make that decision. Definitely not the husband or the wife who are negah b'davar. It's okay. Chas v'shalom. Why? I don't think so. Not really. Because when it comes to colors, by the way, as you know, you're not seeing true color on the screen.
When the iPhone you could adjust.
It comes closer.
No, you can adjust it. You're not going to just say color, and then you compare it.
You compare it?
Right.
Yeah, I guess technology is getting better. Yeah.
For at least for rabbis, maybe not.
Well,
For the average person.
Right.
We need to have an eye for color. It's not only a question of. It's a special talent to identify with the color.
Yeah. Anyway, as we will see, it's not just the color; it's other things as well. Yeah.
That are visible, or that durations.
Well, we're going to be talking about size, and we're going to be talking about shape. Well, not really. Shape won't matter as much. It's the total area that is being covered by the stain. That area can be elongated, it could be square, it could be round. It's just the total
shape.
The shape won't matter as much.
Whether it's regardless of where.
Right. It will matter more if it is a certain size of was the area. What if it's a lot of drops, small little droplets? Do we combine them, or do we not combine the droplets in the required size?
So there's a minimum for the stain.
There's a maximum size which is clean. Was beyond a certain size, too big, we cannot be lenient with. As we're going to be learning today, one of the leniencies in stains is that we attribute it to a bed bug, to lice that was squished, right? So if we're just generalizing that it was some sort of bug, then bugs don't leave big stains. Unless you know your house is full of big bugs that leave big stains. That's different. But based on the takana, based on the gzera, I should say, of the chachamim, it had to do with certain types of bugs, which we'll learn. We'll get to in a few moments. All right, but before we get into Ksomim, let's see if Beis, Gimel, and Daled. Beis, Gimel, and Daled are very easy to follow because we've covered some of the ideas in the previous Siman. Ksomim in themselves, lo gozru betinoikes shelo higia zmano lidois. In other words, the Chachamim did not decree that the halachas of Ksomim should apply even to a young girl. Dehaino, shibchuso miyud beis, that she's younger than 12 years old, afilu hivia shteis, even though she has hair, pubic hair. Chen afilu hoiso yeseda miyud beis, even though she was older than 12, in batku, if they checked her, velo hivia beis, so she doesn't have the hair yet, ben shi besula, ben shi beula, whether she's still a virgin or whether she's married. If she's still young, afilu imraso kwa beis be'omim, even if she already saw twice blood, there's no gzera on if she's a stain. But after she has seen blood 3 times, then she's pretty much like an adult. Her body functions like an adult, behaves like an adult, and then she will be chosheshes lekesem.
So when it says here, that means that she actually saw blood.
Blood. That's correct. Yeah. Haisa shofat kama yamim. Let's say she was having blood for several days. Shofat means streaming, running. Or she was zalef is more like drip, not streaming, but drips, drop by drop, without any interruption. Since it's uninterrupted, it's only considered one event, one incident, until there's some interruption between the incidents, so we can count them as 1, 2, 3. Otherwise, it's 1. אבל אם פוסקו מעט וחוזרו ולעשו 3 פעמים, אפילו ביום אחד הרי זו מוחזקת בדמים, כסמו תומה. But if she had some blood, and there was some interruption, and then again some blood, 3 times, אפילו ביום אחד, even though it was only 1 day, she's considered מוחזקת בדמים, she has a chazaka of blood, of seeing blood, and therefore her stains from now on are tome. Well, not every stain. Of course, those stains that are tome by an adult would be tome by her too. There's an opinion that says that her kesem is not tome unless she actually saw 3 vestas. 3 separate times, not in the same day, 3 separate times completely, that would render her equivalent to an adult, and therefore her kesem at that point would also be tome. Otherwise, we don't consider her a gdoila, an adult woman. She's still a ktana. The yesh lehachmik is for Rishona, which is the swara of Rashi in the Rashba, the Tur. We're machmir that even though she did see it within 1 day with small interruptions, she saw 3 times or more, she's mechuzekes bedomim. Okay, just to explain this a little bit more. Well, before we explain, let's see Siv Dalet. Tinoikes shelo higia zmano lirois. Let's say we have a young girl that her time has not come yet to see, but also Gimel Pa'omim, she saw 3 times with Posto Meliros, and she stopped seeing. Shiur Sholosh Oinos Shem Tzadik Yom, the shiur of 3 Oinos, which is 90 days. Chozeres Lekadmus, so she goes back to being Iktana, to her original status. Bekitmo Tohar, and her Kesem is Tohar. Ache Tachzo Betira Sholosh, until she goes back and sees 3 times. So here we have a situation where as we've seen before, that a tinoikis can become an adult, there was choshesh for her, but she can go back to her original status if she stopped for 90 days, which are 3 oinas. Then, at that point, even though she's already seen it 3 times, but she stopped for 3 times. We're not talking about an older woman here. An adult who stopped for 3 oinas, big deal. I mean, she maybe lost her vesed, maybe she has a new vesed, that's something else, but a gdoila does not become a ktana. Here we're talking about a ktana that became a gdoila, she can go back to becoming a ktana. If somehow her body reverted back to what it was. It was a fluke. That for some time she was seeing blood, and her status temporarily changed from ktana to gdoila. It could be, if it happened to her on 3 occasions, 3 oinas, which is 90 days, that she goes back to her original status, which means that her kesem would be completely tahor, regardless. In trying to understand a little bit more how kesem works, I think Rashi gives a good explanation. He says, Kol ikod ksomim d'rabbananinu. He says, that's his language. The whole idea behind ksomim that makes a woman tmeya is really the rabbanon. V'chigozo rabbanon v'higia zmano. The dam motzui boy. When would the chachamim goizer? Only when her time to see blood has come. Ava beho, this young girl, lo gozo. There was no gzera to begin with at all. Why? Ho'il ve'ein bodomim. Since it's not very common for her to have blood, she's not supposed to have blood. Therefore, the gzera was never applied. So that's a simple explanation that with a young girl, we don't have to concern ourselves. All right.
So then we assume we like it, that it's not from us.
That's a good question. Ordinarily, when we make that assumption that it could very possibly be from somewhere else. The question, however, is, what if she says that she knows for sure it came from her body? Because so long as we don't know, we're toiler. We say, you know what? It could have come from somewhere else. If the girl says, therefore, I know for sure that this came from inside of my body, what's the halacha? If you look at the Gemara, from the Gemara it's mashma that she's tahora, even though, in other words, you cannot be toiler in anything else. You know, even though there's no other reason to believe they came from somewhere else, from the Gemara it's mashma she's tahora. If you look at Rashi, it appears that he would hold the opposite. Rashi seems to be saying, V'lo yoda yosi migufo elo. In other words, we don't know for sure if it came from her body. So what does that tell us? That if we do know that it came from her body, then she would be tmeya. Because the general suffix in Ksomim is that there's always this possibility that it came from somewhere else. Because of that, we're mekel, right? So therefore, based on Rashi would be machmir. Therefore, if the girl says, I know for sure it came from my body. So I saw Rabbi Akiva Eiger. Rabbi Akiva Eiger says on this, and the Chavas Das too, I believe, that there's no reason to distinguish between an adult woman and a girl when we know, or when she says, I know for sure it came from my body. Once she says that it's from her body, I just recall that he was machmir. That once she says it's from the body, there's no reason to make a distinction that perhaps with her we should be more lenient. That since she says that it's coming from her body, then you have to assume that it came from her body.
How much do we cross-examine her? She's a katana. She knows what's happening. Serious repercussions if she says yes.
Yeah, there was 2 explanations there too. Let me see if I have it here. There were 2 explanations given there. Yeah, this is what I have here from Rabbi Akiva Eiger as follows. It's not mistaber to be mechalek between a katana and gdoila, only be'inyan tliya bedam me'almo. In other words, it's more mistaber to say that by katana that it's not from her body. Maybe it is from somewhere else because she's not expecting to see blood. But if the dam is bevada migufa, why should we make a distinction between katana and gdoila? Besides that, he brings down, who says she didn't feel? You cannot trust the katana. She doesn't even have a din eid echad be'isurim, so she's not believed that she didn't feel. So if she says it's from her body, we don't have the kula anymore. That's what Rabbi Akiva Eiger says. I think that's what the Chavas Das says. You know, it could be that she did feel. She did actually feel. I mean, if she did feel, then it's a deraisa. Just because she's a katana, she's not supposed to have, but she did have. That's as far as katana is concerned. But going back to shofas, dripping for several days. That in itself raises a question, is that really possible? I mean, how could a woman be bleeding for so long? And because of this question and how you understand the Gemara, there's various opinions as to what the halacha is in shofas. Do we say shofas kamayomi literally, or do we say even if there is a little bit of an interruption? So that's a machlokes Shach and Taz here. The Taz says if there is a little bit of an interruption, then it would be considered a separate incident. The fact that she's shofas kamayomim is possible according to him if it's a couple days. A longer period is impossible, but a short period is possible according to the Taz. So therefore, it's not a big deal that she's shofas a few days. And if she were to have interruptions, that would be considered a separate incident. The Shach, however, is masking to the Bach that there must have been small interruptions. It's impossible for her to be just having blood the whole time uninterrupted, and we still consider it one incident, even though you have these small interruptions. We're not talking about like over an hour or so. Small interruptions. So therefore, even with a little bit of interruption, it would be considered one incident. Crazy Placey, Chachma Sodom, go along with the Taz, that as long as she was not post-koral, it's one. But if there was a little bit of hafsaka, it's considered separate incidents. Alright, now we're going to go on to Sif Hey, which is where the actual halachas of Somim begin. Lo gozru ala kesem, elam ken yesh bo kegris be'od. The gzera on kesem, but the chachomim was only if it is the size of a little bit over a gris. A gris, we'll come to that. Yeah, we'll come to that. What's a gris, first of all? Yeah. A gris is a split bean. Certain type of bean, actually. Now, why is it a split? Because a bean, usually round or oval, in order to be able to see the proper size of it, or the area that it covers, you would want to split it in half, not along the width or length, but half along its width, the area that it covers. Well, there's different kinds of beans. There's different kinds of beans. Are you talking about the pinto bean or kidney beans? Yeah, no, we're talking about a more circular type of bean.
So there should be a difference which way you're right.
No,
if it was a pinto bean, a kidney bean, which is which way you cut it.
Well, it's just easier. You know, when you cut it along the width, it's just easier. We're not exactly cutting it vertically or horizontally. We're taking away half its body. I'm using it as an example for practical reasons. We're trying to measure something here.
To measure, not to lay flat. Just
we're trying to measure a surface of a stain here. Okay?
And you're going to end up with equal halves.
You're going to put a bean. Okay? It may be a little bit difficult to figure out. A bean does not lie flat.
You're going to have two equal halves.
Yes, you are.
So you're cutting it through the middle.
Yes.
Regardless of it's from top to bottom, left to
exactly.
right, round,
right.
You're cutting it through the middle.
Through the middle. Exactly.
You have it two equal halves.
So through the middle.
That's what you can say.
Right. Does that make more sense?
Yeah. We know that we're going to end up with pieces.
That's right. Yeah. Of course. So I'm just trying to define gris. Split peas is the best example that I can think of. But this is not a pea. This is a gris. So the kesem that the chachomim were talking about, in order for it to have the size that would possibly make it tameh, would be im yesh bo kegris ve'od. Bigger than this. What's the shear of a gris? The shear of a gris, hu ketet adashim, like 9 lentils. 9 lentils, gimel al gimel, 3 by 3. Okay, so now we're more specific about the size of the gris and od. It is, as others say, tet adashim, lined up 3 by 3, or in a square. Or another way of looking at it is the shiur adasha. What's the size of a lentil? Is kedalet searot. Now, if you're looking at a Shulchan Aruch over here, you might see kof daled 24. Kof quotation mark daled, but that appears to be an error. It has to be kedaled.
So half apostrophe daled, not half daled.
Kedaled, like 4.
Like 4.
In other words, the apostrophe is after the daled.
What is that?
Yeah, it should be like, well, you're not looking at the Shulchan Aruch, you're looking at it Badei Shulchan, which probably has it correct. Right. So it should be like 4 hairs. Shiur, in other words, the lentil, the shear of the lentil is like 4 hairs. So how many lentils do we have? 9. So we have 9 times 4. So we have shehu lamed vov se'arot, like the shear of 36 hairs. Kemo shehen kvuot begufo shel adam. 36 hairs not standing next to each other, but as they are growing in a man's hair, on his head, I should say.
On the head.
On the head.
This is gufo.
Right. So someone will say gufo is on the hand, but we mean the head.
The area 4 here, the head occupies
36 hairs.
36 and 4 by 4.
No, 36.
36.
Right. No, because that's the measurement of tet adashim.
Tet adashim. So 1 adasha and then tet adashim.
Which each adasha is 4 se'arot, so you have 36 se'arot.
What he's doing here is he's simply substituting a certain surface area measured in terms of adashim by the exact same area. We don't want to come up with a different area. The exact same area measured in terms of hair.
Yeah.
But the area that results from measurements of hair must be the exact identical area measuring by Adashim. Just because we're applying now a different unit of measure doesn't mean that the area has grown or become smaller.
No, of course not. No, yeah.
So if the original area of measure was expressed as 3 by 3 Adashim,
Right.
so 3 by 3 would be
9.
Well, it's not only 9, but they're laid out in a certain way. We have 3. What does it mean 3 by 3? It means 1, 2, 3 from top to bottom, and 1, 2, 3 either to the right or to the left. That would be 3 feet, right?
Right. The Shir agrees, but being equivalent to 9 Adashim is covering, if you lay him out in a square. Has to be, yeah.
A square, okay.
Which he says is 3 by 3.
Okay, so now we have to arrive at the same square with 4 hair per Adash.
Yeah. So he says Shi'ur Adasha is Kedal, let's say according to the Girsa Kedalet Se'arot, is 4 hairs. So you would have a total of 36 hairs. Meaning as they're laid out with the space in between. What means with the space, because the hair, we don't have one hair next to the other. Right. All right. Anyway, what does this amount to? These are all just giving us an idea of the surface that it covers. It amounts to approximately the surface area of 18 to 20 millimeters, which is the size of a penny or maybe a nickel.
Wait a second. It will be
a penny or some.
Because dimes and cents are much other than nickels.
Yeah. Well, it ranges. It ranges. I've seen the penny being used more as the real shear. An American penny.
Cent.
Yeah, cent. But I've seen others say that it's closer to a dime. Others saying that it's closer to a nickel.
So it's
I mean, it's not that much of it doesn't vary that much, but approximately. I think the penny is what is used the most.
different.
It is?
Nickel and a cent in size.
No, not so.
I mean, no, a nickel is...
Not really. It's bigger, but it's not close to a quarter.
Well, a dime is almost a cent.
Yes, a dime, yes. A dime is the smallest one. For some reason, a dime is smaller than a penny, right?
The dime,
That's correct.
the penny was always made out of
Always copper.
It was
Yeah.
copper except during World War II. Made it out of steel.
Yeah.
The nickel was nickel, which is
Supposedly, yeah.
In the
Yeah, in the olden days, yeah. So, but anyway, that's the penny is closer to the size that's used in this country, at least, to figure out, the size of the stain. So, kol zman she'en bo kezeh shir, if the stain doesn't have the shear, anu toilin loymar, what are we going to say? We're toilet. Toilet means that we presuppose that this is a dam kinahu, that this blood is coming from some louse. Afal pi shelo horgo kina, even though she did not kill a kina. But once you have the kigris and od, once you have more than there was the negris, even a little bit more, then we don't presuppose that it came from a kina, because a kina doesn't leave behind that much blood, and we don't say, well, there was 2-3 kinim. No. As it is, we're being lenient. Why are we being lenient? Because even though there are no kinim in this house, we're still relying on the kula of the chachamim back then, where they did not have the hygiene that we have today. You know that once upon a time, not too long ago, the floor of a person's home was dirt. It was not tile or whatever. So the hygiene was lacking. I mean, they did not have the hygiene back then that we have today. So it would be common for there to be lice or bed bugs, as we will see later on. Bed bug is another problem. Or other kinds of fleas that can produce, by squishing them, this kind of blood. Now, wait a minute. What happens if she finds a black stain? What do you say to that?
What we are worried about, the stain of the blood coming from...
Yeah.
Can it be the stain of the blood coming from the black?
Sure. No, we learned that. We learned about colors of blood. Black is red that just, became somehow lost its pigmentation, or somehow it lost its redness. Black color could be tameh, sure. In Hilchos Ksamim, we're going to be learning that black is a problem too. Brown could be a problem too.
What would be the difference? So then the issue kind of bugs are into the area.
Oh, so then the thing is like this. But wait a minute, kinim or bed bugs don't leave behind black blood.
Why not?
And here we're being toilet. What are we? We're being toilet right now in the
Wait a
kina.
second, but why do bed bugs not leave for red blood?
They would. not black.
Why not black?
Because they don't, that's a fact.
But the fluid leave out behind the blood that they see of the human.
That's also
so
true.
If the blood of the body of the human, then the blood that the police washed after having sucked that would also become
Then
black.
cows should do.
I don't see why the police would
But
infect
cows
the
do
cows.
white.
Yeah.
The flea does not actually be back the same.
But it
Yeah,
could,
It's
and
like
that's the
Good.
whole point.
Yeah, no, but that's the blood from the body, from the surface in the hand. I don't think it'll be turned black. But anyway, that's a question that's raised. The Rabbit is machmir because of that. He says if kinim don't leave black blood, then we cannot have something to be toilet. We're being toilet on something, right?
They don't.
That's what he wants to say. We're being toilet that this came from a bug, and if there's reason to believe that this is not from a bug, I mean, that it could have come from her body, and black is possibly from her body, then maybe we wouldn't have this toilet.
Bed bugs can have blood. Bed bugs can have blood.
Exactly, unless it's exactly. That's what I'm saying. Unless,
Yes, maybe,
but not lice, not lice. Right. So that's what we're gonna be. That's what we're gonna be seeing. That's what we're gonna be talking about. Is other bugs other than lice. But here, the Chachamim were toile on dam kina, which was more common. But as you were saying, what if there's something in that area that leaves behind this kind of blood? Then of course you could be toile on that. Exactly. So that's what, in other words, the Rabbit says, we were toilet on dam kina, but if it's black, it can't be dam kina. But what if in that place there's other bugs that do leave behind blood that is black or turns to black? Then that would be different.
So people would have to go and push bugs.
What is that?
So to know whether or not on it being from a
Yeah.
bug,
Mm-hmm.
bikini,
Right.
we would have to have the scientific knowledge to what, when you squish it, what those bugs.
In other words, what is common in that area? Because usually these things don't happen that much. I mean, that you just happened to squish when the woman was moving her body around and she sat on it, she squished it.
Jews in South Africa, Jews in Egypt.
Yeah. But usually, they leave behind. We're concerned here about red. So red, we can be toilet on a kina, even though there may not be kinim around. We still have that kula from the past that we inherited. In other words, it's still applicable. We can still rely on that. However, once you don't see red blood, you see something else that could be tame, then you can't be toilet on a kina. The question is, well, maybe I could be toilet on some other kind of bug that leaves behind this color. Well, then we would have to see if it's common in that area for people to see or to have in their homes this kind of bug. Yeah.
Let's assume.
Right. Sure.
There are no, these kind of, let's say, non-release in normal mass.
Okay.
Okay? And she gets, so it's less than the size of a base.
Right.
Will still be toilet.
Yes.
On being from a bug, even though there are no bugs in
Yes.
it.
It's a chiddush, right? Because we're not according to everybody. Okay, but the halacha.
Right.
There are different opinions in situations that do not allow for that. Of course, they would be machmir. Not only that, they would be machmir even on the size. In other words, that we're not baki on a grease. They would say even less than that. But you look at all the poskim here, and they say, don't be over machmir. It's not right to be over machmir in an area that is a derabana. It's not fair.
Especially because you're giving the couple as many.
Sure. So therefore, you have to be careful. We have a heter here. We have a kula, and as we're going to be learning through the ksamim, you will be surprised that ksamim only apply under certain conditions. In other words, what if she finds it on toilet paper? What if she doesn't find it on her body? What if she finds it on her pajamas? It depends where she found it. Is it a davar shemekabel tumah or not? There's different halachas on if it's on the toilet seat. What if it's in the urine? So there's a lot of kulas. Unless the stain is really close to her panties, where most likely it came from there, that's different.
Because their rice is permitted to her.
Exactly. Still, there's no hargasha, and so forth. But we'll leave that for later, because that's what this siman is all about. But now, just to finish up the seif here, the main toiling here is on the toiling loima dam kinahu. Afal pishe lo horgo kina, even though she didn't kill a kina. Afal kesheyesh bo kezeh shir. Once you have the shir of kegris and oid, and toiling kina, then you cannot be toiling a kina because the kina does not leave behind so much blood. Beinimu meruba, beinimu orok, whether it's square, whether it's elongated. Now, here comes the punchline. If in her area where she lives, the grisim are bigger, she can use the size of the grease of her location.
I thought the bugs are bigger.
No. Yeah. Unless you...
to do with the grease. Grease just gave us a...
If the bugs are bigger, we'll see that later on. What happens if the bugs are bigger? That's a separate...
That we got before.
Right. That we already measured. We have all the measurements for that. Yeah. That we have the measurements for. Right.
Everybody is getting larger than that.
That we should be machmir? Yeah. No.
The 24 is a minimum everywhere.
Of the grease.
But some areas, the grease can be
yes, it could be.
But when the grease is larger, it means the victim that is smaller than this larger grease would not forbid her.
Exactly.
So we're being more lenient.
We're being more lenient. Yes, that's correct. We would be more lenient with the bigger grease. But there are other situations, as we will see in the next seifim, whether it depends whether she saw it on her body, whether it depends on if she saw it on her clothing, whether do we combine various spots into one, or does it have to be the one spot has that size?
Not to be seen. Error that we live in with salt.
Yeah.
Larger.
Yeah.
The size of the grease today.
Yeah.
Should be large, genetically engineering things to use in terms of fly size.
Yeah, but that's pretty much the standard. That's the standard. It would have to be that the same kind of grease that they were talking about then is bigger now. It would not just be anything.
No.
Yeah. Right.
Because we
It could be. It would be a little bit different. Yeah, that's why the Mechaber says what he says. Yeah, it could
So
be.
then he's left alone, the Kedanet Sa'arot.
Only because we're Mako. We are being lenient in this area. That's why you may be able to use slightly higher, slightly bigger size grease.
Now, would you be allowed to actually engineer larger grease for that purpose?
Yeah.
You meaning plural.
Yeah, that I don't think. I don't. Yeah, I don't think so.
Are there statistics?
I think that's something called man-made. Man-made.
that was where I was going.
Yeah.
You get to the point where you apples and peanuts.
Yeah, but remember, what's the point? Well, yeah, but what's the point here? The point is that the Chacham told us a kina can leave behind a stain like that. The kinas back then apparently left behind such a big stain. Today, you don't even have that size of a stain, that kind of a kina that can leave behind that much dam, which is in itself a question. How could it be that we're so makel if the facts are different? The facts, right? It's only because this is what the Chachamim said back then. This is what was applicable back then. This is the size of the stain that was possible back then, and that's what we remained with. Even though today it may actually be smaller than that. The amount of blood that's left behind from a kina is smaller, or there's barely any kinim. Now we will see there may be other possibilities of where the blood came from. As we said, meat and so forth. But right now, assuming there's nothing else, where did this come from? It could be a kina. Now, once it's over the size, we don't say it's a kina, of course. We say she's tmeya, possibly. But what we're saying is, she's not tmeya if it's small.
No,
what is it then? If it's not from her body, what is it? Yeah. What is it then? It could be a bug. In other words, what are we saying? We're saying it's not necessarily from a body. Then what is it? It could be a bug. It could be something else too. But it could be a bug. Now, if it's over that size, then it's definitely, most likely not a bug. And then we need to look at it. We need to look at the color. We need to look at the location and so forth. Exactly. Other kinds of bugs may be more common than lice, And that's what...
They have ever so often these go around in school and stuff.
Yeah, in the hair. Yeah, sure. Yeah, but here we're talking about that she actually squished something. And it could happen. It could happen that was something else. Again, it's a kula. It's a kula in some of the Rabbanon. And that's something that we can rely on if it's under the size of a grisa. All right.
We can try this.
Yeah. All right. We'll continue with Hashem in 2 weeks from now.